My wife kicked me out after buying her son's lies. 3 weeks later she asked if I thought. I stood in my driveway, watching my entire life, my clothes, my hopes, my future, get thrown out a second-story window. My wife, Eleanor, was screaming, her face contorted with a rage I'd never seen, telling me to get out of her house. And then I saw Noah behind her, a triumphant smirk playing on his lips, and I knew, this wasn't just an argument. Just hours earlier, we'd been having coffee, everything perfectly normal. Now, the air felt thick with betrayal, and I was utterly lost, struggling to process how my world had just shattered. Let me back up. I met Eleanor 4 years ago at a coffee shop in Charlotte where she managed. She was this incredible, kind widow who'd lost her husband to cancer 3 years prior. Noah was 13 then, a quiet kid who seemed lost without his dad. I fell for Eleanor hard and fast. We dated for 8 months before I proposed, and she said yes, tears in her eyes. I promised her and Noah that I'd never try to replace his father, but I'd always be there for both of them. The first 2 years were honestly great. Noah was distant with me, sure, but I understood. I never pushed, never demanded he call me dad or anything. I helped him with homework, drove him to friends, paid for his phone and clothes. I even bought us a bigger house so he'd have his own space. Eleanor was happy, we were happy, and I truly thought Noah was adjusting. But looking back now, I can see when things started to shift, when the poison started dripping. About 8 or 9 months ago, Noah began making these little comments to his mother. I'd walk into a room and hear them. Little things that sounded sweet on the surface, but had this strange edge. He'd tell her how beautiful she was, how she could be a model, how she deserved someone who treated her like a queen. I honestly thought it was just a kid complimenting his mom. Other times, he'd bring up his deceased father whenever Eleanor and I set any kind of boundary, saying his dad would have let him do whatever it was he wanted. At first, Eleanor would shut it down firmly, telling him to stop, reminding him I was good to them. But the comments kept coming, subtle and constant, like water dripping on stone. He'd question why they had to follow my rules in what he called their house. I tried to talk to Eleanor about it, suggesting Noah might be having trouble adjusting, but she waved it off as typical teenage drama. Still, I noticed her looking at me differently sometimes, like she was studying me, searching for something. Then, about 4 months ago, things got weirder. Noah would be a completely different person depending on whether his mother was in the room. With Eleanor present, he'd be laughing and joking with me, acting like we were buddies. But the second she left, his face would go blank, utterly neutral, like I didn't even exist. I'd try to engage, suggest activities, and he'd just give me flat, one-word responses. Then Eleanor would come back, and suddenly, he'd be animated again. I started feeling crazy, like I was imagining the whole thing. The real explosion started 3 months ago when Noah asked me for a car. Not just any car, bottom left of screen, click full story.